Hello and welcome to my second masterpiece YouTube video. The first was just a quick 2.5 minute overview of my collection to date, set to the music of the wonderful Vince DiCola. And this is going to be a far more detailed, in-depth look at my collection, probably split into multiple parts because I tend to ramble on a bit. This first part is going to be my G1 Season 1, specifically More Than Meets the Eye collection, and we're going to start with the Autobots, as we probably should. So without further ado, here we go. So first up, we've got what is probably my current favourite, I'll say the crowning jewel in my collection, and that is Transform Elements TE01 OP Leader. Their take on a masterpiece styled G1 Toon accurate Optimus Prime. I bloody love this thing. Now, I had MP10, I still have MP10, don't get me wrong, I like it. It's a great figure for its time and I paid enough money for it. But this just blows it away, to be honest. It's pretty much everything I could ever have wanted in a masterpiece Prime. I'm aware there are other options already available, like the Magic Square and forthcoming Takara MP44, but the former I just think is too bulky and stylised and too reminiscent of MP10, to be honest, and the latter, well, Jesus Christ, where do I start? It's kibbly, panelly, especially in alt mode. It has a backpack the size of a Unicron and it costs, you know, the size of a small Death Star. It is ridiculous. I don't know what Takara are thinking, really. I mean, I know it comes with more accessories, you know, trailer and all the other bits and pieces, but it's something like 400 quid. Well, it's crazy. It's 3 or 4 times the cost of this figure. And as someone who only really displays in bot mode, all I want is a G1 Toon accurate looking Prime, and this thing nails it. I've actually added a few bits and pieces to it. Now, I've got a V1 as well, I should say. The V1 that I have, the differences between the V1 and the V2 are fairly minor, but they switched out the knee ratchets, which were die-cast silver in the V1, you can't see from here, but they are, to blue vinyl in the V2. And also the hip ratchets are slightly changed, not just in terms of colour, but also in terms of the number of teeth they've got. The V2 has more teeth, so you get 1 or 2 extra clicks forwards and backwards. Now that's about the only thing that bugs me, really, because it would have given it a little bit more range of motion. It's quite wide, the distance between the teeth as it is, or quite a large gap, so you can't get really fine poses out of him. But in all honesty, it's not a massive difference, and you know, I prefer the silver die-cast knee ratchets anyway. The other major difference is that the V2 comes with a new head sculpt, which the V1 didn't, and luckily I managed to get my hands on that head sculpt. Now this, as far as I'm concerned, is Optimus Prime. I mean, I like the V1 head sculpt. It was reminiscent of the G1 Season 1 Optimus Prime and the Season 3 and the Marvel, but it had a light, almost off-white faceplate instead of the grey faceplate we're used to. This is modelled on the movie and later, well, maybe later Season 1, Season 2 head and the movie, definitely. The blue coloured plastic is actually a little bit lighter than the rest of the figure, but you can't really tell unless you put them next to each other. It's great. I mean, word is it was basically reverse engineered or modelled on scans of the upcoming MP44 head, and I don't really care. It looks great. I've also added a couple of other bits, some not water slides, they're just decals that I've put behind the already blue windshield. And I got those from the TFW forums, a member kindly posted on there. I could probably do a better job printing them on better, harder paper, but I just stuck them in there at the moment. And I also added a water slide decal, which was better than the flimsy decals they came with. This Prime, I love it. I think it's amazing. I think it looks fantastic. The alt mode is really good as well. Not that I'm much of an alt mode guy. I display everything in bot mode pretty much. But I think the guy who designed it, Iron Star, I believe, he's a freaking wizard for being able to turn that into this. And I can't see myself upgrading. Well, it's not even going to be an upgrade in my mind. I can't see myself buying MP44 when I've got something this good already. And I highly recommend this over any other Prime. I think it looks fantastic. If you're a toon guy, this is where it's at. It's what you need. Get your hands on this fella. Now he is flanked by two characters that in the G1 series, or the original G1 toy lineup, had probably the worst toys of all. That is Ironhide and Ratchet. I think they are MP27 and MP30 respectively. They, God almighty, they were abominations, weren't they? They were basically, I mean, they were obviously, the original toys weren't meant to be Transformers. They were supposed to be vehicles that were piloted by humans. So the toys were essentially just exosuits with faces, or stickers that looked like faces stuck behind or plastered behind the windshields, which is a detail that actually these carry over if you look hard enough. But these masterpiece scaled, they look so much more reminiscent of their cartoon and comic based counterparts. I have a slight issue with the scale. I think they're too tall, not only compared to this Prime, which is taller than MP10, so obviously naturally compared to MP10 as well. But I think they look great. You know, I think there were issues with the mould as well. Like they came with hip skirts originally. I actually bought the Shadow Fisher upgrade kits for them, so I've got rid of those skirts, filled in, or got rid of that kibble, and it's also they also fill in the chest somewhat. It was annoying. I ended up spending another £15 per figure on those, but to be honest with you, these are KOs. I'm not going to get into the morality of KOs because quite honestly I don't care. That's a discussion for somewhere else. I'm fine with them. I think if figure doesn't warrant the price, and a lot of Takara figures don't, especially now, and I can get a good enough deal on it, I'm going to get it. I mean, Ratchet was stupid. It cost me 20 quid. I think Ironhide cost me 30 quid. So once you factor in the upgrade kits, right, they cost me a bit more, but they're still a good bargain. And I'm really happy to have these guys. I think they look really good. I had to do some touch-up work on them. I got myself one of those chrome pens, filled in some of the dodgy chrome on Ratchet. I had to tighten Ratchet's leg joints, which was super floppy, but I didn't have any floor polish, so I just used a bit of nail polish that I managed to borrow from someone and put them on the ball joints, and that tightened his legs up a bit, or stiffened them up enough so they didn't flop around like a rag doll. But yeah, great face sculpts, tons of accessories for both of them, and they look so much more like the G1 cartoon and comics. I'm ecstatic, honestly. Just to have them after this many years looking even remotely like they did in my favourite media instead of the toys. Can't ask for more, really. Moving on, we come to Hound, who I love the G1 character of Hound in the comics and the cartoons. I mean, he was a big important character in the first 3 episodes, the More Than Meets the Eye series. He was almost like he was the human liaison. He was Spike's buddy, and he was replaced as it went on by the chap below, Bumblebee, but we'll come back to him. This is Fans Toys Willis. Now I like it. I think it's a nice figure, but there are a number of caveats. The articulation is limited, the sculpt's a bit boxy and the proportions aren't quite right. He has huge boat feet, and the ankle design is a nightmare. It's pathetic. It's really bad. It becomes floppy owing to the fact it's secured by a screw, which when you move or transform the figure, it works the screw loose. I actually got a really good deal on this because he goes for stupid prices second hand, and I picked it up on eBay. And I got a good deal. I think it was about 80 odd quid, but compared to the 100 plus, easy 130 normally plus that it was going for everywhere else, it was a really good deal. And it was because the leg was broken, in quotes, and it wasn't at all. I mean, I thought I'd take a chance, thinking I know what it would probably be, and I was right. The screw need tightening. That was all it was. So I got a really good deal on that. I fixed it within 5 minutes. I like the face that's on it now. I prefer that to the silver face it comes with. I think it's very toon accurate. And yeah, it's a good placeholder. I'm going to replace it, almost certainly going to replace it with Takara's offering when that comes out, because that is more toon accurate, but especially colour wise. But for now, I do like this, and I'm really glad to have him on my shelf. He filled a hole in my collection. Next to him is Make Toys Downbeat, which is their take on Jazz, and I love this figure. Again, this is another one I picked up second hand, annoyingly about a month or two before the reissue, for considerably more than the reissue would have cost me, but you know, hindsight in being 2020 and all that. It's more annoying is it actually had some slight paint rub to the bumper. I guess a new one could have had that, you know, what with QC and stuff. But it did come with some repro labels attached or applied, sorry. I don't really like them, but I haven't removed them yet. I haven't got around to it, but I need to at some point, because the guy I got it from applied the faction symbol off center and it's been bugging the hell out of me. So I need to redo that with a water slide at some point. But other than that, I mean, some of the colours aren't quite G1 accurate, but the sculpt, just the character, it just really evokes memories of the figure. And again, Jazz was one that I had a lot of fond memories from, not only because he had a big role in the cartoon, sorry, but also in the comics, the early days of the comics, and especially the UK episodes like Man of Iron and things like that, or UK issues, I should say, not episodes. I think it's a great figure. It's really got a lot of attitude, and I can't see anyone else releasing anything that's really a lot better than this. I mean, Coolsville, Hover, whatever they're called, they're not good. This is spot on. I love it. Next to him, we have got Masterpiece Wheeljack. Now, this is the Plus version. I forget, is it MP22 Wheeljack? I forget, or MP22 Plus this would be. I can't remember my MP numbers. I've got a KO of the original, which, again, I got that because it was stupidly cheap as part of a bundle, and I knew this was going to come out once they started doing the Plus line. I prefer the flat colours. I know a lot of people don't. They like the old, more complex designs. I'm a toon accurate guy. I love this. It just really looks like it leapt off the screen. And yeah, I think it's a really nice deco. And I'm really glad I picked it up. I've still got the KO. I've got that in alt mode. But this is now my main display piece. And I always had a fondness for Wheeljack because I could never get him when I was a kid. And then I eventually found a Mexican version of all things in like just some weird little side shop. And I'm sure it had toxic paint, but I didn't care. I've still got it actually. It's upstairs in the loft. But I'm not going to lick it to put the paint thing to the test. But yeah, I love this. I love this figure. Going down, we have the first of the mini-bots. Now, the mini-bots were the worst of all Transformers figures, scale-wise and design-wise in my eyes. They bore so little resemblance to their comic book or cartoon counterparts. I'm so glad the Masterpiece scale figures do a better job of it. And I mean, this is X-Transbot's Toro. And I know people have... Yeah, thanks, Carla. I know people have mixed feelings about it. You know, some people prefer the MMC Hellion, but I really like this little guy. I mean, I know he's got somewhat boatish feet and a huge backpack, but unless you're viewing him off centre, you know, that doesn't really come into play. And you can, if you want to take the pin out, you can remove the backpack without affecting the integrity of the figure, and it will even clip back on for alt mode. And I like the fact it doesn't have a chibi alt mode as well, because I prefer the more realistic alt modes, oddly, as a toon guy. But yeah, I love this little figure. I think it's great. It comes with an absolute shed load or skiff load of attachments and add-ons, and I think it's a really good little addition to my collection. Speaking of which, this is a figure that I was after for a long time, and it took me best part of a year to get hold of him until he was reissued, because I wasn't going to pay the aftermarket prices for such a small figure. And that's Gears, which this is Bad Cube's Grump, and overall I think it's a brilliant representation of the G1 character. The original toy wasn't much. It was one of the better mini-bots actually, but it wasn't really great. This guy has a brilliant toon-accurate face, or faces in fact, 'cause he's got a gormless smile if you swap his face over. I think proportions are really good, the alt mode's good. I mean, he's got the Bad Cube feet, but what are you going to do? It's just a Bad Cube thing. I think he looks really, really great. And I'm very happy to finally get him at a reasonable price. I think it was 45 quid. Can't really beat that. Now, here we have little old Bumblebee. Now, MP21, I want to say. I'm aware that he's going to be replaced soon by MP45, which is the BV2, which is arguably more toon accurate. I mean, it's a more accurate colour yellow. It has probably got a more accurate head sculpt. It's definitely more posable, has more options, but it has Boaty McBoat feet and a big backpack. And I don't know, I'll probably get it because I am more toon centric, and I will swap it out and have this one in alt mode because I don't like the chibi alt mode of the new Bee. But I'm always going to have a soft spot for this guy because he's one of the first Autobots I got. I originally intended only to collect Decepticons, and that didn't last. So I really like this guy. It was a present for my son as well, so special meaning. And I think he looks fantastic. I'm really glad I've got this little guy. Moving on, we come to some more of the mini-bots. Now this, again, is Bad Cube's Brawny, their take on a Masterpiece Brawn. And he is quite a stylised version of the figure. I mean, Brawn in the cartoon and comic was quite lanky, with a massive head. But for someone who was supposed to, or a bot that was supposed to be the second strongest Autobot behind Optimus Prime, it never really fit. I think these squat proportions, he looks like a real, kind of, I don't know, bodybuilder to me. He looks like he could actually go toe-to-toe with some of the bigger Decepticons and hold his own or win. I like the squat proportions, again, Bad Cube feet, but he really looks great. I think the colours are really good. I think his alt mode's good. Don't get me wrong, I mean, I know there is a Fans Toys version coming and the sculpt on that is more G1 accurate, but once again, Fans Toys colour renders, that they look like they screwed the colour up really badly. It's more of a lime green, for God knows what reason they've gone with that, but it also looks like it's, metallic flake paint on die cast yet again, and they've had so many issues with that recently. I don't know what they're thinking of. If it does end up coming out looking like that, I can't see me replacing this figure. I mean, if they do fix the paint, the colour and whatever, I mean, they've even got the colour of the forearms wrong. They made them white instead of sort of the grey they should be. If they don't fix the colours, I'm going to stick with this guy. If they do, I'll probably get the Fans Toys, swap it out and put this in alt mode on my alt mode shelf. But I still love it. I know it's not completely, it's showing its age, it's not completely toon accurate, but I think it's evocative enough of the toon and what I think Brawn should look like or could look like. I really like it. Now we come on to Windcharger, or X-Transbots Boost. Now this is actually the second version of the character I've got. I originally bought the toon version when it was re-released because it was the last figure I needed for my G1 Season 1 More Than Meets the Eye collection. Couldn't get it for love nor money. Well, I could have for money, but not for 100 odd quid for such a small figure. There's no way I was paying that. So I waited patiently. Patience paid off, or at least I thought it did. Within a month of me getting the toon version, X-Transbots announced a Comi-Toon version, which was basically a toy version with a slightly darker grey chest. Annoyed the hell out of me because I've waited for ages. When I got the the toon version in hand, I didn't really like the blueness of the chest. It wasn't really right. I like the white legs, but not the blue chest. I saw this and was like, fuck it, I'm just going to get it. I still got the other one. I'll probably sell it on at some point. I even went as far as to swap the white legs over to see if it would look even more toon accurate, but to be honest, his legs were really more of a silvery grey than white anyway, and it didn't really look right, so I swapped them back. It's fairly easy to do though, so if anyone out there wants to do it, it's quite simple. I'm pissed off with XTB for doing that. I think it was a bit of a shitty move on their behalf to kind of piss customers off like that. I ended up spending over 100 quid on 2 copies instead of 50 odd quid on one. But what are you going to do? I was in for a penny and all that. The reason I like this character so much, I mean, obviously he did very little in the cartoon apart from die, but in the Marvel comics he had a really memorable appearance, or a couple of appearances alongside Ravage in when he fought the Art Computer Anti, and he got to use his magnetic powers, and I always remember that fondly from my childhood, so that's why it was really important that I finished the collection with him. And moving on, we have Bad Cube's Huff version 2, their version of Huffer. Now, I love this. I think it looks fantastic. I didn't like the V1 at all, aesthetically, or because it seemed to break all the time and not be very well engineered. This, though, again, it was cheap, and it just looks great. I think the colours are spot on. I mean, it's not completely 100% toon accurate, but I think even the Bad Cube feet look quite good on this. There's Chip Chase there. I just really like the figure. I think it's really good. The G1 toy wasn't anything to write home about. This looks much more like the Toon and comic, and I'm really glad that I managed to pick it up for a reasonable price on eBay of all places. Now behind him we have Sunstreaker, which I think was MP39, and that's where Chip Chase comes in. I love that figure. I think it's a great one, or this figure I should say. I love the sculpt, I love the colours, I like the articulation. Okay, so the back view is quite kibbly, but I'm not looking at it from the back. And I know it's got a faux chest, but I don't care. I just want it to look like the Toon, and it does. It looks like the animation model and the comic. I think it's got some good accessories with it, some nice face sculpts. I'm really happy I managed to get my hands on this one. Again, it was quite expensive for what it was, but it's worth it in my mind. I really like the Lambros. I thought they were the Sideswipe and Sunstreaker. I had Sunstreaker as a kid. I've still got it. It's seen better days, obviously. But I never had his brother, Sideswipe, which brings me neatly on to this fella. Now this is Bag Cube's Steamroll. Now originally I had the MP12 Takara's Sideswipe, but I didn't like how boxy it was. It didn't look like the Toon, and I didn't even like the Plus version they did, MP12 Plus, because again, it was just the boxy version with slightly different colours. This, on the other hand, totally different sculpt. I think it's much sleeker. It suits the aesthetic of my collection much better than the Takara version. The alt mode looks great as well. Before I got it, I thought the face sculpt was off, but in hand, it's actually pretty good. To be honest, I quite like it. It's certainly not terrible anyway. I mean, the knees are a bit dodgy. There's sort of gaps in the knees aren't great, and it's got slightly long arms, but it's so clean, and it just really matches up with his brother there. I'm really happy I managed to get this guy, and he's quite cheap as well, to be honest. And I sold my MP12 for what I paid for it, maybe even a bit more actually. So, result. Oh, phone going off. Moving on, we come to Mirage. Now, again, I quite like Mirage. Not so much from the Toon, but from the UK comic. The Man of Iron story is particularly memorable from that for some reason. I think it's because he was still outside the boy's window in silhouette, and that memory stuck with me as an adult, or even to adulthood, I should say. This is MMC Sphinx. Now, again, this cost me an arm and a leg because I'm stubborn, and I didn't want the A version, which was readily available. I wanted the original release with the darker colours, which were more Toon accurate, plus it had the parachute. So I ended up paying a silly amount on eBay before I knew about forums and Facebook groups and things like that. And I mean, it's been reissued countlessly anyway. It's had, like, semi-transparent, fully transparent, Diaclone, soon to have a sort of what they call a cell version, which is supposed to be more cartoon accurate, but I don't think it actually is. I mean, some of the things they've made white on it weren't white in the cartoon, they were grey, so I don't quite know what they've done. They've actually gone too Toon with it and gone away from the Toon. But I really like this version. I think it's a really nice figure. There's areas for improvement, to be sure. I think if someone took another stab at it, they could certainly make a better effort. But for what it is, I think it looks really good. It does a job on the shelf, and I'm glad I've got it. I just wish it didn't cost me so bloody much. Now behind him we have Bluestreak, or Streak as he's called. I think he's MP18. Now I'm really waiting for MP18 Plus because I really like the deco, and I've gone full Toon on everything else, but that's a little bit away, so I've still got MP18 at the moment as a placeholder. I think the mould still holds up fairly well, given its age, but it's starting to show age. I know it is starting to show its age, but I think it does a job at the moment. Someone could probably do a better version of it, but I don't know if I'd ever swap it out. This I got as part of a triple set on eBay. I already had it, but I had a KO, and then I bought 3 KOs, allegedly KOs, off of eBay for 55 quid, all 3 Nissans. And when they arrived, 2 of them turned out to be officials. I don't think the guy knew what he had. Now, Bluestreak and Smokescreen were official. Prowl turned out to be a KO, but I got a really good bargain on this, obviously. Quids in, really. 55 quid for 2 Masterpiece officials and 1 KO, which was a good KO as well. I like the sculpt. I think the head, nice crisp detail. He's a good little figure. But yeah, I'm going to swap him out soon. This is MP19, I believe, plus, MP20 plus, I forget, too many numbers. I recently got this one along with the Wheeljack, actually. I bought them at the same time. And I've got the original version of him, which is a KO, as I've said. Arguably, you know, this is very dull by comparison because it doesn't have as much detail on it. But I like the toon accurate colours. I like the blue, it pops against the white. I like the fact he doesn't have the police logos all over him and all the other things. I actually prefer the white gun as well, strangely. And yeah, Prowl I didn't own as a kid. I never had that. That was the one Nissan I didn't have. So I'm kind of glad I've got him now as an adult. In fact, 2 versions of him. And I had a few QC issues with this one, a few black spots of paint where they shouldn't have been, and a burr on his shoulder, but you can't really see it unless you really, really scrutinise it. So overall, I'm fairly happy. And again, he's not a character I love. I have no really particularly fond memories of him, but it's nice to have him. The character next to him, on the other hand, I never had as a kid, and I can never find it, really. And I'm so glad to have it as an adult. I love it. I think it's a brilliant figure. Obviously, this is Trailbreaker, but it's MMC's Terra Aegis, or Terra Aegis, however you want to say it. It's great. I really like it. I think the flat colour scheme really suits the character. I mean, it's a little bit of sheen to it, but not a terrible amount. I know some people complain about the fact that the detail is lost on the face. It's kind of because it's too dark, you lose a lot of the detail, and I can see what they're talking about, but it's actually better in person than it is in photos and things. But other than that, I think the sculpt's brilliant. I really like it. I just like the character, to be honest. I don't know why. I've got no affinity to him. The only thing I really remember from the UK comic was him getting blown to pieces by one of the Seekers in the Man of Iron story, and he didn't even look like this in that story, so he was based more on his toy. But yeah, I remember him from the cartoon with his force field abilities, and I just really like the sculpt on this figure. I think the old mode looks really good as well. I like that they gave you options of a different toon, difference between toon and toy heads. Plus, you can do different things with the missiles and hands. Mine was an X-Review sample, I believe, and he's got a bit of paint wear on his knee that you might just about be able to see. But other than that, it's pretty good, and I didn't pay a lot for it. So, for something I never had, I'm really glad that I finally picked it up. And it actually, as I say, it was one of the last ones I needed to complete my collection on my G1 Season 1 More Than Meets the Eye collection. So yeah, very happy to have him. Now that is actually everything I want to cover in this segment, because I've got quite a lot more I want to go into, but I'm going to run out of time and it's going to be too long. But this is I hope you've enjoyed listening to it. Sorry, my ramblings and my musings on my favourite versions of the characters. I mean, honestly, I own all of these because I think they are currently the best available versions of the figures. I'm sure there will be people who have different views on that. But hopefully you'll join me for part 2, and I'm going to look at some of my Season 3 Autobots, a few of the Season 2s that I own, and of course my Decepticons. So yeah, see you then.